Welcome. It's Monday, 1 o'clock. Thanks for joining us for another live stream. I start out today with a little something different. I'm going to ask Dom to post a link, and I'm going to ask you to open it and watch it right now. And while you're watching it, I'm going to be quiet. And so, Dom, it's up to you.
Let's post it. Call Mike Anderson.
If you're just joining, make sure that you click on the link that Dom has just shared. Some of you are watching it now. For any of you who aren't, please watch it. It's and we'll talk about it a little bit later. Can you tell when anybody joins?
We've got 10 people on right now.
All right, there's 10 of you out there. I hope you're watching the link that Dom shared right below in the comment section. If you're not, click on it, and then I'll make some comments later. If you're just joining us, watch the link that Dom posted right below in the comments, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Can you tell when that's done?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because they just click the link.
Oh, I see. Okay, for those of you who've finished watching the link, should be pretty close, but you get the idea. That 100 bad days make for 100 good stories, and 100 good stories make you interesting at parties. And so that's the upside of bad days. I was selling real estate one day, some 25 years ago or thereabouts. And my clients and I were looking at homes, several homes. We had about 10 or 12 of them set up. And we drove up the road, a private road, to this house, very expensive house. It was like in the $350,000 range, and that was 25 years ago. And we pulled the car up and got out and walked into the house. The house was open, and we walked through the house, and gosh, it was a lovely house. We walked upstairs and into the bedroom suite and through the bathroom, and oh, it was a beautiful home. And then we walked downstairs, and there was a man standing in the kitchen looking at me saying, what are you doing in my house? Huh? And I said, well, we're here to see the house. It's a beautiful home. He said, I know it's beautiful. It's not for sale. The one for sale is next door. That was a bad day. When you walk in someone's house, walk all through it, and come to find out it's not the house that you intended to show at all. So, but I got a great story out of it, didn't I? The point is, don't be afraid of making a mistake. Try everything you can to not make a mistake. That's why that we have people like me and Leo and Paul and Greg here to support you, Kim and Eric. We're all here to support you and to provide you the best possible advice we can. And if we don't know the answer, we're going to go to the MAR hotline. We're going to go to Gail Anderson. We're going to get the information, the correct information for you, so that you minimize your mistakes. But you're still going to make mistakes, just as I have. And I've had more than 100 stories to tell. And I won't go into them now, but the point is, if you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up about it. Understand, okay, you've had a bad day. Maybe got a good story out of it, but move on and get to the business of selling real estate. Talk about a little bit about EMDs again. I hate to keep harping on it, but again, we're getting deals being submitted that don't have EMDs recorded. And as we have investigated them, we found out that no EMD has been delivered according to the terms of the contract. More importantly, those agents who have not collected the EMD have not informed the listing agent that they don't have an EMD. So it is required under the escrow law in Michigan, under the Michigan Occupational Code, that you must inform the other party when you have an EMD issue. But let's take it a step further. What happens if you find out that the buyer did not file for a mortgage within the term of the purchase agreement? Let's say the purchase agreement says buyer's going to apply for a mortgage within 5 days or 4 days, whatever it is. And a week later, 10 days later, you discover that the buyer has not, in fact, filed an application for a mortgage. You know that the buyer now is in breach of contract. So is that buyer protected by your confidentiality under the tenets of agency, or are you required to have honest dealings with the public under Article 1 of the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics? And according to the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, you have a responsibility to share that information with the other agent and say, hey, I got to let you know that my buyer never made a mortgage application. Now, is it against your client's best interests? Maybe, if they actually intended to ever apply for a mortgage. But the same thing holds true of inspections. Let's pretend that your seller agreed, according to the contract, to order a well and septic inspection within 10 days or whatever period. And you, the selling agent, the listing agent, discovers that that was never done. That we're now 2 weeks into the deal, 3 weeks into the deal, and the seller has never ordered the well and septic inspection. Well, you got to share that information with the buyer. That's not dealing honestly with the public to withhold that information that's material to the contract itself and part of the contract. So let's see what we have for a question today. Brian has a question regarding buyer agency contracts. Do you always have your clients sign a buyer's agency contract in the early stages of showing homes, and do you ever charge a non-refundable earnest deposit? I don't. I when I'm working on commercial business, I do charge a non-refundable earnest deposit. That's a little bit different. But I have not with a residential contract. It's not a bad plan if you can get them to agree to it, because I think it then locks them in to say, if I've got $1,000 or $2,000 invested in Brian showing me homes, then I'm probably going to stick with Brian rather than running into an open house and writing an offer with whoever's standing there at the open house. As you know, we have no ability to enforce that buyer's agency contract against another salesperson for the co-brokerage fee. We have no power whatsoever. Our contract under buyer agency is with the customer, the client. So getting a non-refundable earnest deposit would be a great way of, or non-refundable retainer fee would be a great way of really locking them in if you are successful. Do I always get clients to sign it in the early stages? Depends on what you define as early stages. I will usually allow 1 or 2, 3 maximum, 3 houses. I'll show them before I say it's time for us to make a decision whether or not we think we're going to work well together to help you find a home. So are we going to proceed as a team here? Let's get this on the contract, under buyer's agency contract, and move forward. I think at that point, talking with them about a non-refundable retainer fee would be a great idea and very, very powerful in making that contract stick. The other thing I'll tell you is that, and I know I've mentioned this before, but sometimes buyers assume that the buyer's agency contract doesn't apply if they find the home on their own. And one of the things that I do is I actually do the buyer's agency contract in handwriting, in blue ink, and I do it for a reason. So that where it says the description of the property, I can write in big capital letters, this contract pertains to all properties in Michigan, whether for sale by owner or new construction. And the reason I do that is that I want to be sure that I'm covered even if they walk up to an open house at a for sale by owner, or they get if they walk into a builder's model. And the question I get asked by buyers is, what do you mean? You mean if I find a house myself that you're still going to get a commission? And then my answer is yes. And they ask, how do you justify that? And I say to them, let me put it to you this way. Let's say that the buyer's job is, say, selling cars, and you have agreed to be paid a certain amount of money every week to sell cars. And so you sell the cars, and you sell all the cars that you're supposed to, and then at the end of the week, you go up to the boss, to the pay window, and ask to be paid. And the boss says, hey, really appreciate your efforts. You did a great job. You sold a bunch of cars. But we gave your check to Charlie over there. See, that's what happens when I show you a bunch of houses. When we've agreed to work together as a team, I show you a bunch of houses. I do my part of the job. And then you go and buy a house from someone who you just happen to walk into an open house with. Okay? So, I think that's important for them to understand that the buyer's agency contract does have teeth. We do have the ability to go after a client should they buy a house from somebody else instead of us. And I would love to see more agents enforce it by going after clients who jump ship and buy a for sale by owner or a new construction. So, any other questions right now? Nope. Okay. We had a question coming up, and again, I want to prelude that we are working on the structure of teams and the manner in which teams can work or should work. And it's a very challenging topic to deal with because there are a lot of gray areas. One of the gray areas came up this weekend. One of our agents is a team leader. Her team member is writing an offer on a house. And her question was, and she supervises that agent and the work that he does, and therefore knows everything about this offer that the agent does. In fact, she's guided him in helping to create the offer. Now suddenly she has a client who wants to write an offer on that same house. Uh-oh. Now you've got two agents on the same team, one of whom knows everything about this offer. The agent, the team member, doesn't know about her offer. That's kind of a conflict of interest. It's kind of a big conflict of interest. So how do you resolve that if you're a team? Well, my suggestion is that if you are a team member, and this is only one of the options in structuring your team, is that if you're going to be a team leader who has close supervision, if you are involved in every transaction with your team member, then I would suggest that you be a co-agent on their buyer's agency contract. Likewise, they may end up being a co-agent on any transaction that you would be involved in. The point is that in either of those situations, neither of you could share information about the other offer on the one house that you're both writing offers. So even though the team leader may know everything about this offer, she would have the ethical responsibility to not reveal that to her buyer, because you cannot reveal anything that you learn from a prior agency relationship. For example, if you have a listing and you don't sell it and the listing runs out after 6 months, and then in the 7th month after the listing has run out and been listed with somebody else, a buyer comes to you and says, hey, I really like that house, I'd like to see it. And you say to them, well, I'll tell you a few things about that house that I know, because, I had it listed. And here's the deal. They're getting a divorce, the basement leaks, the roof leaks, and so on and so forth. That's a violation of agency law. You cannot, the information that you gain from that agency relationship, that prior agency relationship, you cannot share in a future agency relationship. And I think that's a really, really important point to make. What else we got today, Tom? Anything? Okay. Again, I encourage you to click on that link. It's just for fun. Hopefully it'll make you feel better that you're not alone. We've all made mistakes in this business. Some of them have turned into some really great stories. And might make you interesting at parties. So thanks for joining. I'm going to sign off, and please leave comments if you have questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Have a great day.